my heart goes out to Syria. This is a country that has, you know, suffered this agony, that's gone on for many years of civil war and just constant attacks. A civil war that's been supported from the beginning by outside forces, by the United States, and this is not an exaggeration. By the CIA, by Qatar, originally by Saudi Arabia. Now, one good thing is that Saudi Arabia clearly has pulled out, by Turkey and by Israel. I think that's actually very important to understand. What's happening in Syria is very closely connected to what's been happening in Lebanon. Um, uh, but I want to point out first the Al-Qaeda connections. If people have doubts about it, it was back in, I think, 2014 that Jake Sullivan, we're talking about the same Jake Sullivan, at the time he was an assistant to Hillary Clinton in the State Department during the second Obama term. He sent an email. I believe it was revealed by WikiLeaks, but nobody's denied the authenticity of it. He sent an email to Hillary Clinton herself saying, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. And during the fighting too, the reports started to come out that the Israelis were actually helping Al-Qaeda in Syria. At that time, Al-Qaeda had seized the territory, around the Golan Heights, and there was fighting there. There was some story that came out, I think first in the Wall Street Journal, that Israeli field hospitals in the Golan Heights were treating Al-Qaeda terrorists. And that was later confirmed by the former head of Mossad, a few years later. Yeah, we did that. And he said, we're doing it for humanitarian reasons. And then the interviewer asked him, he said, well, if they were Hezbollah soldiers, would you treat them? And he said, no. So obviously but it's more than that. It turns out, they were providing them with light arms, with other supplies, with logistical support. Israel was directly supporting Al-Qaeda, from the Golan Heights. And they clearly are supporting Al-Qaeda now. Now, one thing, again, this Kevork Almasian, I was just watching his program last night. There was just an extraordinary picture that he had there from just a few weeks ago. And at the time, shortly after, oops. Okay, you disappeared for a moment. Sorry. Al-Nusra was assassinated by the Israelis in that attack that also took out 300 civilians and other Iranian and Hezbollah leaders. There's a picture of these terrorists in northwestern Syria holding up a big sign written in Hebrew saying, "Thank you, Netanyahu."
Really?
Yeah, for killing Nusra, right? And then, if you had any doubts about the Israeli connection, just this morning, a news report came out that pagers and other communications devices were exploding in the hands of Syrian army officers, while they're defending Aleppo from these attacks. So clearly Israel is very, very much involved in supporting these people, and it was made clear by Netanyahu himself when he declared the ceasefire. He immediately started talking about Syria and say, Syria's got to stop supporting Hezbollah. Syria's playing with fire. He was giving them a warning, and here we are.
So why would the Americas say that Al-Qaeda is our ally, or we support Al-Qaeda in Syria? What that's always been we've always assumed that was the bad guy, right? And now, why? What's the reasoning behind the support for this Islamic extremism, these jihadists? Usually, you always see Israel is fighting Islamic extremism and jihadists. Mm-hmm. That's the narrative that's always been pushed. That they're that Western civilization bastion that is fighting the Islamic extremists. That's what's always being painted. Right. So, what's going on here?
Yeah. Well, one thing, first of all, you have to look both ISIS and Al-Qaeda well, neither of them have ever attacked Israel directly. They always declare their support for the Palestinians, but they've never actually done anything for them. They never, attacked Israeli targets. I'm not aware of any. I think, in fact, I was hearing you just, read comments by an Israeli official who was explaining their support for Al Qaeda. Says they never attacked us. The other part is that, see, Syria is a very important part of the axis of resistance, right? This is when we talk about the axis of resistance, we mean Iran, some militias in Iraq, the Houthis in Yemen, Syria, and Hezbollah. These are they're generally Shia or Shia linked. The government of Syria is not exactly Shia, but it's Alawite, what I think is kind of a Islamic sect that is close to Shia, and similar with the Houthis. They're not exactly Shia, but they're kind of Shia linked, and all of them are when they talk about resistance, it's resistance to Zionism, it's resistance to Israel, it's support for Palestine. It's the part, these are the people who, or the forces in the Middle East that have been consistently, have maintained consistent support for Palestine and opposition to Zion. Virtually, I think it's fair to say that every other country, no matter what their leaders say, has abandoned the cause long ago. So these are the people. This is the force, the axis that Israel wants to take out and is fighting. They know that if they can overthrow the government in Syria, that Hezbollah will wither on the vine, because Hezbollah really depends on Syria. It gets direct support from Syria, and also arms that are shipped in from Iran and other places pass through Syria into Lebanon. Israel knows this, Hezbollah knows this, and so that's one reason why during the Civil War, Hezbollah fighters went and fought together, side by side with the Syrian army against these Al-Qaeda and other terrorist forces there.
Okay.
So you say, well, why would Israel and the U.S. be supporting them? Well, first of all, they haven't directly attacked Israel. But then second is that they are the weaker force. But they are opposed to the Assad government, and they want to weaken the Assad government. And if they actually manage to overthrow the Assad government, they would find that it would be easy for, let's say, the U.S. or Western forces. You say, oh no, now we have Al-Qaeda in charge here, we have to get rid of them or something. And then they can move in and then install an Israeli-friendly government. I think that's really been the plan all along, at least to, at first they try to just put pressure on Assad and get him to make concessions, but he's remained firm all along. And I think we really have to respect him and other leaders like him in this axis of resistance. They have been put under tremendous pressure. They know that if they give in and make a deal with Israel, that the pressure will be removed and they'll get billions of dollars in subsidies from the U.S. and, like what's happened in Jordan and Egypt. But they've remained firm, and Assad remained firm. They tried to pressure him, and then we also have to say this was, what happened in Syria was very important. When the Russians intervened, they showed for the first time that in a way Russia is back. Russia had been just kind of not even a factor in military and geopolitical affairs for a long time after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And, that's why we had the unipolar moment, why the U.S. could just do whatever it was. And this was, in a way, was the first time where, the U.S. had a plan. They were going to overthrow this government. They were confident they could do it, but then Russia came and it imposed constraints on them. They weren't able to do what they wanted to do. And so I think that's part of the anger directed against Russia. We need to take out Russia. Russia is constraining our actions.
Do you think that Israel or the West was involved in any way in this attack, that they helped coordinate it, or that
no question about it. I mean, I think, we can see with the pager explosions, but, And from the other, I mentioned, yeah, there is a direct relationship between Israel and these people, and the CIA and these people, and also Turkey.
So,
Um, Turkey,
so
Turkey actually has some of its own forces scattered throughout Idlib province. They know what's going on. They have their own little force there.